So today, we're diving into a topic that sounds like it's been ripped straight out of science fiction: the power to bend, to shape, and maybe even to make sound itself disappear. I mean, really think about that for a second. Not invisible to light, but totally silent. An object that sound waves would just flow around, like a river around a stone, as if it wasn't even there. It sounds impossible, right?
Well, it's not. This amazing sculpture in Madrid is a real-world example of this exact idea. Its carefully arranged tubes are built to block a very specific sound frequency, around 1670 hertz, and it does this using nothing but its physical shape. This is the heart of a revolutionary new field called acoustic metamaterials. But how is that even possible? Well, the answer means we have to completely rethink what a material even is. You see, with pretty much every material we know, its properties come from its chemical makeup. Steel is strong because it's made of iron and carbon atoms. But metamaterials, they just flip that whole idea on its head. Their amazing abilities don't come from what they are, but from how they're built. It's all about architecture on a tiny, tiny scale. And that internal architecture often looks like a repeating periodic structure. You can think of it like a man-made crystal, which is why they're often called phonic crystals. It's this engineered pattern that gives them their incredible power to grab and control sound waves. Probably the easiest way to wrap your head around this is with an analogy. You might have heard of photonic crystals, materials that are structured to control light. Well, phononic crystals are the exact same concept, just designed to manipulate sound waves instead of light waves. But just having a cool, repeating pattern isn't the whole story. Oh no. To get to the really mind-bending stuff, scientists had to, well, kind of break some of the most fundamental rules of physics. First, we need to get a handle on a property called bulk modulus. It sounds complicated, but all it really is a measure of how much a material hates being squished. Think of it this way. A diamond has a super high bulk modulus. A marshmallow, on the other hand, has a very, very low one. See? Pretty straightforward. The second property is mass density. And this is one we all get, right? It's just how much stuff is packed into a certain amount of space. A block of lead is way denser than a block of wood. Easy. Okay, so here's the kicker. In every single material that exists naturally, from the air you're breathing to the rock under your feet, both the bulk modulus and the mass density are always positive numbers. It's just a basic law of how our world works. Or at least it was a basic law. The absolute game changer, the breakthrough that unlocked this whole field, was the realization that you could engineer artificial structures that act as if these properties were negative. This is something that just does not happen anywhere in nature.
So what on earth does that even mean? I know, it sounds nuts. A material with a negative bulk modulus would actually get bigger when you try to squeeze it. And one with negative mass density? Even weirder. If you push it to the right, it shoots off to the left. It's totally counterintuitive, but it's this bizarre, impossible behavior that gives metamaterials their superpowers.
Okay, so the theory is wild, but what do these impossible materials actually look like? How do you even go about building one? You know, this wasn't some overnight discovery. The theory was first floated way back in 1967 and was refined in the 90s. But for decades, it was just that, a theory. Then finally, in the year 2000, a team led by Zheng Liu actually did it. They built one and proved it could work. And you know what's crazy? This first working metamaterial perfectly shows that structure over composition idea. It was incredibly simple. Just little lead balls coated in silicone rubber arranged in a perfect grid. It wasn't the lead or the rubber that did the magic. It was their precise arrangement. This structure created a kind of collective resonance that opened up a band gap, basically an impenetrable wall for sound at one specific frequency. Of course, since that first success, the designs have gotten way more sophisticated. Researchers started borrowing ideas from totally different fields, like electronics, creating these tiny structures called split-ring resonators. Each one acts like a little circuit, but for sound, which lets them fine-tune the material's acoustic properties with incredible precision. This all sounds like fascinating physics, for sure, but what is it actually good for? Well, this is where things get really, really exciting. First up, we've got something called the acoustic superlens, and this thing, it promises to completely change any technology that uses sound to see. For centuries, there was this hard rule in physics called the diffraction limit. It basically said you could never focus waves to a spot smaller than half their wavelength. This is what limited the resolution of things like medical ultrasounds.
But an acoustic superlens, using those crazy negative properties we talked about, just smashes that limit to pieces. It lets us create images with sound at a resolution we never ever thought was possible. But the applications get even bigger, and I mean much bigger. What if you could use the exact same idea to protect an entire building from an earthquake?
That's the core concept behind seismic shielding. An earthquake is essentially just a massive, low-frequency sound wave traveling through the ground. If you could build a large-scale metamaterial around a building's foundation, you could theoretically create a filter that redirects all that seismic energy, making the waves literally flow around the structure, leaving it completely untouched.
And of course, we have to talk about the most famous application of all, the acoustic cloak. The principle here is just so elegant. As sound waves hit the cloak, the material's finely tuned structure smoothly guides them around whatever's inside. The waves then meet up on the other side and keep going, perfectly reformed, with zero indication that anything was ever in their path. To a sonar detector or a microphone, the object is simply not there.
And that really brings us to the final big picture question. This whole journey wasn't just about finding a new type of material. It was about realizing that we can design and build materials with properties that nature just never came up with. So if we can break the fundamental rules of acoustics, what other impossible problems are just waiting for the right structure to be built?